Hey everyone, welcome back. Today's guest is an intuitive life coach. Denise Miceli is the creator of Rock Your Blocks. She has a passion and dedication focused on helping people remove blocks to change. As an intuitive life coach, she uses the powerful tool of subconscious healing to align behaviors, emotions, and patterns with your authentic self. The reason I asked Denise to come on and talk to us today is because I know there are women that have difficulty taking back their power. And Denise gives us some really good tools on how to do just that. It is time to take back your power, ladies. So stay tuned for my conversation with Denise. If you are listening to this, there's a good chance that you're a woman in the corporate world who feels stuck in your career and you're not sure how to advance. If that's the case, I want to let you know that I have an incredible resource that can help you. I created a promotion readiness checklist with you in mind. The checklist can help you pinpoint exactly what you need to work on to advance in your career. And the best part, it's completely free. And it only takes 3 minutes to complete. I have helped countless women like you achieve their career goals, and I know exactly what it takes to succeed in the corporate world. My promotion readiness checklist is a perfect tool to help you get started on your path to success. You will find the link on the episode website, or you can go on nowomanleftbehind.com to take the quiz. Hi, Denise. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks, Rosie, for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. So you obviously do a lot of work with alignment, and this month is Women's History Month. I know your episode is going to publish a little bit later, but I have been talking a lot about self-worth and self-confidence. And so I know that you talk about imposter syndrome and aligning women with their passion. So tell me a little bit about how you do that. How is it that you help someone align their passion with whatever's happening in their life? Since you obviously know that corporate women are very busy we're trying to take care of so many people. So tell me a little bit about how you do that.
Yeah, I was in that sort of world for a long time, so I can totally understand. And I often put off my own inner work because I was like, oh, I don't have time to spend on this every week. So one of the ways that I like to help women cut through all of that, we don't have to talk about all of the history and go on and on about the events that happened and all of that. But what I like to do is use a form of subconscious work that helps us to identify what is the most present emotion that you sort of default to whenever something doesn't feel right, or, you don't get enough rest or whatever, stress at work that day, you're going for a new position, whatever it is. What is the emotion that is always repeating at those stressful times? Is it anxious feelings? Is it sadness? And we try to bring down the intensity of that through simply using talk to the subconscious mind. And there is a little bit of training to it because we want to explain to your brain how its parts work together, because I think that is very mystified for people when they hear the term subconscious. They're not really sure what we're talking about. And so there is a little bit, about a 15-minute training that explains to your brain, like, this is this part, this is this, and that 90%, and this is the big thing that I want people to hear, is that 90% of our immediate reactions and actions in life are coming from those subconscious parts of us. So if we can calm those emotions, whatever the most present one is when that person shows up to the group or the session that day, let's get that softened. Let's get that down so we can find what's really going on, and we can identify some of the more positive things that are just waiting for the space, to present themselves, to be empowered, and all of that. So it really is one of the fastest and easiest ways to make space for, a little bit more centeredness, a little more groundedness, and tuning in, like you said, to what is it that I want to be doing? Maybe this position, it just no longer provides what it used to, and I'm ready for the next level. But I keep maybe blocking with the saboteur of, oh, you're not going to be good at that, or you tried that once before. And, all of the things that our inner kind of saboteurs will bring up. And then we sort of go along with that if we're feeling tired, we're feeling stressed. So,
Okay, sounds good. Now, we talked a little bit about energy. So I'm a high performance coach, and we have a couple of different ways that you can shift your energy, and you have a way to access immediate relief. So like you said, if you're feeling that anxiousness or tired, how do you work with your clients to access that immediate relief and feel your energy shift?
So I definitely believe energy work is a big part of it for me. Aside from the training that I received on the subconscious healing, I also have for years studied breath work and yoga and body mind practices, because a lot of times, we might even just feel a mild amount of anxiety, but we feel something more in the body. And so using breath work and using meditation and helping women to curate some kind of an inner work practice has become really a big part of this work, because you don't want to just show up once a week or twice a month or whatever it is and like just have this other person be fixing you. You want to learn how you can do this ongoing. And, some of the research that has come out now is very exciting about breath work in particular, and that they've seen that people who are doing breath work for consistently. And again, there's no rule about it. 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes is ideal. If you can put that into your day and begin the practice, it sometimes can have an immediate shift in preparing you for a meeting or an interview. But there are long-term effects as well. And one of the studies I just read the other day, I'm preparing for a whole presentation on breathwork, and it came up and I was like, are you kidding me? They showed that a 50-year-old who had been taking time out for meditation every day had as much gray matter as a 25-year-old. And
Wow.
I thought, wow, I mean, what they're able to see now with these high level brain scans that, make CAT scans look like, carving in stone, but they can really see how much the brain changes from these different activities. So not only does breath work, is almost part of every session that I do, to just get people to be present, to drop off what they came in with, let the stress go. So there's an immediate sense of like, every time we work together, you are practicing this. And people do find that, what, I'm going to maybe try this before bed, or I'm going to try this if I'm getting into a triggered state from something that happens at work. I'm going to leave the environment and try to bring myself back. And so those are the tools that really I initially learned through yoga, but really it's kind of taken a whole separate path for me, and it's become really embedded in the practices, because as you know, when you coach someone, right, you've got to give them on the go tools today. We can't, we don't want to. As women, we have everyone that depends on us, and we don't want to be dependent on others for our, state of mind and for our alignment. We want to know, how can we manage this on the go,
Exactly. Now, you're saying breath work. For those people that don't know what that is or that struggle, and I know a lot of people personally that are like, oh, I could never meditate. There's no possible way. My brain is going, and
Yes.
I do a meditation in the morning, about 30 minutes, but I now know what to do to kind of pull myself back and things like that. So can you just do a little bit of a simple explanation of what you mean by breath work and how people, because I think meditation is becoming more and more the norm and common knowledge. So
Yes.
share with us a little bit about that.
So the way that I learned breath work was as one of the 8 limbs of yoga. And actually, the thing that people, misnomer about yoga is that it's just the postures, but actually has 8 different parts, one of which is meditation, one of which is breath work. And these are the 3 major ones. And there's others like philosophy and daily habits and all of that. But the asana, the postures, the breath work and meditation, and then concentration, right? Because in order to do the other three well, you need to be able to concentrate. And so it's being able to concentrate enough to clear your mind. But to get deeper into the breath work can be as simple as just noticing where you're breathing. And that's where I usually start when I do, like, for example, I'm presenting to a group that hasn't had any breathwork training. So I will break down where it comes from. In my experience, there are other ways people come to it, but the purpose of it is to calm the nervous system. And so and we can show them science if they're people that really need convincing, but you do have to want to try it. And it is not something that's going to you're going to do it the first time and you're going to want to. And that's why people work with facilitators now and practitioners. And even, I recommend to people go onto an app. I have actually profile on an app where you can go and see some of my meditations, listen, and try different styles, because I will say over 5 decades of doing it, I've changed my style many times because, for some time I might want to really hear someone guiding me every morning in a certain way based on how I feel when I wake up. But now I like calming, soothing music. There's so much healing music now, right? So I love to hear all this new music, and I will just clear my mind. And I find that that's more powerful, but that wouldn't be a place for a beginner. So it really is about, first of all, starting and noticing where you breathe, just noticing where your breath is. And many people will discover they breathe in this top part of their lungs. And so they may be experiencing, the body sensation of someone who doesn't have enough oxygen, who may get tired midday, who, may react more than they would if they were a little more balanced. So we start by noticing, and then we just connect the idea in the initial meditation of, let's breathe into the full lungs, feel both sides of your ribs expand, feel your air go into your belly. And of course, we're using visualization, but we get them to actually do a breath all the way from the top, all the way to the bottom. We show them what organs are part of the anatomy of the breathwork system. And so it opens up this whole door, and then of course we show them how this affects the parasympathetic, and that the more you practice bringing yourself out of that fight or flight mode, the more you will be out of that fight or flight mode when things happen. And so we kind of lay the foundation. We throw some, if they're science geeks and they want the information, we'll throw some research at them, because there is, 10 years ago that you'd have to search to find a few articles. Now it's, as you know, and I'm sure it's in the corporate world and everything. So that's really how I approach it. And then I do like 3 levels. So start with notice, practice a simple 3-part breath, and then we'll go into some more complex breath that they'll really feel like a mental reset from, that they'll feel more connected to their body. And so they have kind of a taste of what's possible with the idea of practice. And as you said, it isn't going to be for everyone, but at least give it a try, especially if you're going through a tough time. I've been through times where I didn't meditate for a while. And then I was like, oh boy, guess what? I really missed that. I need to get back to it. And then you go back and do it, and you try to be as consistent as you can. But the more that I read this data that comes out, I'm just like, wow, I want to have more gray matter as I get older.
For sure.
We need all the gray matter we can get, right?
Absolutely. Well, I talk a lot about empowering women in the corporate world and owning that confidence, understanding that if they are not confident, what they need to do. So one of the things that I tell them to do is to start taking action. When they start taking action, their custom career roadmap, then the confidence kind of builds in parallel. And I know you talk about feeling more empowered and thinking more positive, which ultimately helps women to make better choices in their life, both personally and professionally. So what are some things that you could recommend to women in the corporate space to embody that confidence, to feel more empowered so that they can make those better choices?
Well, for sure, I always try to develop tools, whether it's self-questioning or journaling. But with the breath work, I often will say it's a perfect time to journal because you've cleared space, right? So what is it that you want to create? It's a wonderful way to end it, because let's say your mind was jumping all over, which, trust me, I have days like that where I go, oh, wow, the 15 minutes is up and I don't think I cleared my mind for a minute, right? And it's okay. It's just, it's showing you the quality of where you are right now. And so, but following it with a journal activity where you're like, not necessarily creating a list of what you want to create, but a powerful statement about who you are. I am the powerful creator of my life. Something that really will kind of go to in opposition to that saboteur, that inner critic that's in there saying, oh, are you sure you want to go in that competition with those other people? They're so good. And all the things that come up when we want to go for that gold. And so I think it's really important to have some positive statements, and on the other hand, if there's a crisis going on and there's something negative you're dealing with, using the breathwork session, using whether it's breathwork or just quieting the mind, coming to a close and saying, okay, above all else today, I want to look at this situation differently. I want to reframe it. I know there's another perspective that can be more positive. What would that be for me? It might not be, oh, yes, everything's wonderful, right? From having this conflict at work, but it could be something like, I know there's a better perspective. And then allowing that to just come out of you onto the paper, I've gone to, digital journals, onto the iPad, and let it come out. And sometimes the answer is within you and you just haven't given yourself time to listen. And so then, like you said, then you can go ahead and have a little confidence and say, you know what, that is a better way to look at this. I shouldn't focus on what I think someone thinks of me before I even walk into the interview. I need to focus on all of my strengths and have those bullet pointed out for me so that I can walk in there feeling powerful. And often, as you know, women, we tend to overly focus, and not just women, but in this case, we are so judged from so many lenses, right? It's like, oh, okay, you're a mom, you're a wife, you're a vice president, all of these things. And, people are looking for the cracks. They're looking for those things. And if all we do is focus on that, and everything with social media and everything, people are picking each other apart. So the world is kind of like that right now. So, but if we focus internally instead and kind of round out our inner work practices with how can I go forward with a different perspective, or how can I just get to a better feeling than what I have now? What's a little bit better? Maybe I can feel hopeful right now. Maybe I can't feel, okay, everything's going to be aces, but I can go a little bit higher on that emotional scale to allow myself to, to bring in the positive and walk into that meeting, into that interview, feeling more empowered. And my energy is going to show that. If I go in there feeling more empowered, feeling positive and confident, that's going to come through. If I go in there and I'm looking at everyone and I'm thinking, what are they thinking about me? That energy comes through as well. So we have to be aware that many more people are much more aware of that, and that how we go in there is going to be visible. And oftentimes the confident person, and I know you've probably been on interview teams as well, you can tell when somebody maybe has the skills, but they're not showing the confidence, and vice versa, and I would pick the confident person that I know is intelligent any day of the week over somebody who is just very fearful or just showing a lot of sort of indecisiveness even on how to answer questions, for example.
Okay. So, hey, everyone. I am so excited to announce that the Unlock the Leader Within membership is finally launched and live. This segment is brought to you by our very own No Woman Left Behind. The Unlock the Leader Within membership was designed to empower you in your corporate career to advance your career with confidence. Confidence is so lacking these days. When you join the Unlock the Leader Within membership, you will gain the ability to become a high performer. You will have your custom career roadmap and more than anything. And the thing that's most exciting to me is that we will build an amazing community of like-minded, ambitious professional women that are there to help and support and learn from each other. This incredible membership is up and running, so check it out. Go ahead and scan the QR code over here. Or if you're listening to this episode, go to the episode website and click on the Unlock the Leader Within membership to check it out. And now back to our episode. Okay. So some of that you were talking about, I think, is triggers. So if something
Yes.
triggers yourself in the external, how do you react to the internal? So let's say that someone in the corporate space got some bad reviews from a customer or a coworker, and either the customer or the coworker is upset, which is making the individual upset. So what are some things other than breath work? So once they recognize a trigger, what
Yes.
can they physically do? Because sometimes when you're at your desk, you don't even
Yes.
think about doing the breath work because you're
Sure.
so triggered. So, what are some things that women can actually do once they recognize that they're feeling that way?
So definitely, I mean, it is, very much triggering. So when a situation or a person says something, or you get an email and you're like, oh, you can feel that zing. It's really important to take the space away from that, walk away from the computer. If you can, just go into a break room, go outside for some fresh air, take your break. We never take our breaks, but take a step outside. And then I tell people, ask yourself a couple of things. One, what is the emotion that I'm feeling? Is it anger? Is it sad? Is it I've been found out? What is it? Try to identify it as best you can. And then ask yourself, because our first reaction is always to bash the other person because they've somehow injured us. They've somehow, hit us with a dart. And so we want to lash out. We want to blame them and just say they're dumb, whatever. But really, we've got to go inward to determine what in us, what from our past, what in our memories, our emotions is being triggered. That is a sign that we need to do that inner work, because that is really where the power is, right? If we want to clear that stuff and be able to become all that we can, we've got to be able to identify that work. And then, perhaps we can clear it on our own. But even if it brings up a bigger root and we decide, we want to go do some work in a workshop or work with a healer or a therapist or whatever, the point is that it's owning the responsibility for, like, okay, this is related to, this other event in my life where I was disregarded, I was ignored for the accomplishments I had in a certain area, right? And now this email is saying kind of the same thing in a cryptic sort of way. And so we're not going to be able to respond to that in a productive way. We identify where it comes from and we try to calm it a little, give it some space. Don't reply right away, right? Take some time. You can sleep on it, right? Everybody says you need to sleep on it. Think about it. But I say you need to ask those questions. What's the emotion? What is it connected to? And you might realize that why it has so much power is because what it's connected to goes a lot deeper. And it may be a theme of your childhood. It may be a theme of your teen years or some other point in your life where you constantly were not heard. You constantly were disregarded, whatever it was that triggered you. And so then you can begin to, like I said, with this kind of work, see that and say, you know what? This is not who I am anymore. I don't need to be freaking out when someone doesn't see me. What I need to do is go back and say, thank you for your message, but I would like to point out these things that I've done in this area. Correct the situation in a very calm and professional and responsible way, which you're not going to be able to do 30 seconds after you read that email. So it's that self-questioning again. And it's so important and powerful. And it takes the power back to ourselves. And it may identify, as you work with people ongoing as well, that it may identify a need to work with someone more deeply. And it may be something where you could be like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was exactly how I felt when I was a teenager. And, I still kind of feel that way about my family. They don't see my intelligence or whatever it is. And so, especially if it's gone on throughout your life, it could be very hard to neutralize that in a quickly, in a one sitting. But at least the reality of it softens your reactions going forward.
And it's so interesting how things from our past are always going to come up in our present, right? And it's so crazy because what happened, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, really has no impact in my life. But it's the thought in my head about that one event, and being a middle child of 5, I know the whole like not seeing and getting lost in the shuffle. But you're absolutely right, because that one trigger, it's almost like we're taking the charge away. And
Wait, exactly.
we're just letting it simmer and calm down. And then the next, however long it takes, then you can deal with it more calmly. Is this the same thing, Denise, would you say, as emotional intelligence, or is that a little bit different?
It is certainly I believe it's connected because I actually have some training in that. And I know that when people have these realizations that they've never had and they're in their 40s, 50s and up, and they're going, oh my gosh, this has been at play my whole life. And they start to, even come back week after week and be like, oh gosh, that was part of my first marriage or whatever. Like they start to see the pattern was repetitive. And so I think that it's an awareness that feels like emotional intelligence because now I can make a different choice. Now I can see when I'm going to date someone if they are really needing my strength, but they're not bringing strength that I need. And so, as women, a lot of times we feel like we are validated for the value we bring to a job, a career, right, or a person, but we deserve to have value back. And sometimes we get lost in that. And I think that's part of it. But I mean, as far as what it's really related to, a lot of it is what they've learned about the neuroplasticity of the brain, that we hold all of the memories of our life as much as we sometimes want to forget, or sometimes remember one that was like connected that we're like, oh, that was buried, but now it came up. But the point is that we can change those. We can soften them. We're never going to get rid of them. They're part of who we are, but we can soften their influence on us. And now that they know that the brain is changeable by breath, it's changeable by meditation, it's changeable by just going out and taking a run, doing things that we love to do and having more of that in our lives, we can, change the course of where we go with it. And certainly self-awareness is the first part of it. Some people are getting trained in neuro-linguistic programming, which is very similar because it's about talking to the brain in very simple statements, and a lot of them I am statements, very powerful, or statements where you're creating what you want to feel, so that instead of repeating the same stories in the same negative frame, how can you say this in a more positive way so that when you go to tell someone about it, you're not repeating the same negative story because it's cementing it even more. And so really how much we are now understanding how much what our words and our thoughts become those limiting beliefs. And so it's just as easy then to say, okay, if I change my words, how I talk about myself, how I think about myself, then I can eventually get to changing those habits. And because we know the brain is neuroplastic, we know it's possible. And that's the most exciting part of this for me, is that seeing these brain pictures with before and after, and it's like, there is something happening. Do they truly understand all of it? No, but they know certain segments of the brain show a difference before and after these activities, which is just profound.
Yeah, I love it. And I know I'm very familiar with NLP, and I'm very familiar with the meditation. And as a matter of fact, I did a seminar by Landmark Education back in 2007. And at that time, I was going through a really bad divorce. So they had us do this exercise, and they were like, okay, we're going to take 30 minutes and you're going to write out your story. So there's like, I don't know, 200 people, and we're all writing, right? And then they paired us up with another person. And they're like, okay, now that you have your story, however many pages it is, you're going to read it out loud. And everybody's like, oh, but every time you read it out loud, it was like that charge was dissipating and dissipating and dissipating. And after reading it 6 or 7 times, then you were like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I was so focused on this story that's on paper. And then you fold it and they're like, okay, now you're going to let it go. And the majority of the people were able to get past that hurt or, whatever. So it's almost like we healed it by the fact of taking that charge away. So
yeah, physically and metaphorically, it's very,
yeah.
very powerful
Yeah.
to just really, even sometimes people will just know the emotion. Like I've always been prone to sadness, but they're like, but I love life and all of that. So what, how come I keep allowing this to come back? And when they realize the depth of it, they realize how much their relationships that are closest to them involve sad people. Their inputs are more sad than anything else. So if you're a sensitive person, which a lot of us didn't realize until later in life how sensitive, we were absorbing all of those stories, all of those emotional baggages that sometimes are generational. And if that is what we're carrying around, wow, we're really missing out on the fact that actually we're very happy people at the core, and we're very capable horrible, but all of carrying all of this stuff. And so that's where bringing it up and then quickly treating it. And depending on the person, I've had some people who just completely left an entire career. And it took them, coming back to several sessions to continue to soften and then allow more space. And then it was, oh, I've got the resume rewritten. I really want to go into nonprofit from sales. And it's a big leap. It's a totally different thing. But certainly if it's something that you can show passion for and you can make connections between what you've done and where you want to be, anything is possible. Right. But we have to unblock that stuck energy. Yeah.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Now, I know that you also talk about, and this, the conversation that we're having is probably related to this, but I have found that women sabotage their own career advancement by doing a few things. So, like not believing that they're deserving and worthy, and that could show up in like many different things, operating with a fixed mindset, and then not having that career roadmap. So, what have you found when it comes to saboteurs and that old part of your past that kind of keeps coming back? So along the same, lines.
Sure. Sure. Digging a little bit more into the saboteurs. I know that, to me, I relate it to the training that I had, those younger parts of us that are still in a protective mode, but it can also be a parent, a grandparent, anyone in the family that was influential. The most powerful and the saboteur that we all have to a certain degree, but can be very pronounced in some of our elders, and I'm talking about the elders of our generation of women, is the judge. And the judge, otherwise known as the inner critic, but the judge was always quieting us down when we got excited. They were always taking our ideas and saying, why would you want to do that? And that echoed through us. And so, some of us might, have been, the black sheep in our family, wanted to go to college, wanted to do this, wanted to do that. And we're constantly told over and over again, that's crazy. You can't do that, or whatever the case may be. We were judged as our, not having a good sense about things, right? So that becomes a part of us. And it is a protective part that's trying to save us from the agony of defeat or not being able to get into the college, not being able to. But really, it's a saboteur that we have to pull up and identify. And so if every time we have a thought or an idea and we are sharing it with people around us that are doing that, it's reinforcing and strengthening that saboteur. And so it takes a lot, if you are in that situation, to be able to, and that's where getting outside help is important, because you're not going to throw away everyone in your life, right? Your parents, your grandparents, and all of that kind of stuff. However, you can put it in a different perspective. There's that word again, where it's like, that was their mindset. It was very fixed. They thought women should be a certain thing. And here I was coming along saying, I don't want to be that thing. And so I was pushing on the envelope, and I got a lot of pushback. And I eventually learned, when you get an idea, Denise, don't run to them with it, because you want to be excited about it. And there are people who are going to support you no matter what your ideas are. Find more of those people, right? And if you don't have any, then look at what you're doing and what you're surrounding yourself with, even in coworkers, right? There are sometimes coworkers that can be very supportive, and there are sometimes others that can be, like you said, maybe they're not helpful in, giving you good advice, and they're kind of shying you away from positions and saying, oh, well, they've been hiring a bunch of people less qualified than you for that position, or whatever the case may be. Then that just adds to your saboteur. So in doing, this kind of work, you can often start to see that, maybe I need to pull back from some of these people in this particular thing. I'm going for this big position, and I need to, maybe I need to get a career coach. Maybe I need to assess how much I have a fixed mindset, because just because you find out, what? I've had people, I used to have my teachers take that assessment, and a lot of them found they were much more fixed than they realized. It doesn't mean that you have to stay that way, but it's self-awareness that, like, wow, I didn't think that I felt, if this is the intelligence you have, this is the only intelligence you're capable of in your life. How limiting, right? So but we can look at the other side of it and say, okay, there's a possibility that I can get this position, but what are my inputs? How am I being supported? And is it the right people? And if not, maybe I need to get with a business coach, get with a career coach, and really, like you said, they may not even have a plan. Some people, I'm sure you've seen this, they apply for every open position that has the word in it that they've been educated in. That is not a good thing to do. So it is true that we all need expertise at some point in our lives. And especially when, as women, we get up there in our careers and we are worthy of these bigger positions. But our fears and those saboteurs, especially the judge, that inner critic, can be the one that really can derail.
Interesting. Well, all right. I mean, we definitely have to be aware of that fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. And, by the way, like for me personally, like for example, one of my friends is an avid skier and they love it. So I have a total fixed mindset on skiing because it's of no interest to me. It's like, it's just like there. But when it comes to playing guitar, I'm a novice guitar player, but I have more of a growth mindset because I'm taking a few classes, and
You enjoy it. Yeah.
when I have free time, I will try to do that. So I know I can do it. It's just a matter of applying myself and actually doing it. So you can have, a fixed mindset and a growth mindset depending on the things that are of interest to you.
Oh,
But
sure.
I'm curious, tell me a little bit about your story. So you were in the corporate space and now you're doing this really important work, so how did you go from being in the corporate space to this breath work and yoga and everything that you're doing?
Yeah, it's a really interesting story because I had a lot of education to be in the career that I was in, and I was moving up. Actually, was because I had my own business before. I had experience with leadership and speaking to people and all of that. So very early on, I was getting promoted and getting to a high level and interviewing for, positions with 2 or 3 rounds and all of that stuff. And I started to realize that as I got higher up, the stress load was changing it for me. It was changing the game. And I feel like, when are our cultures going to figure out that working people to death the way that they do? Like for a while, there was a little movement toward job sharing and part-time work for these bigger positions, and it sort of fizzled. It's like, no, work, 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 and I couldn't see or find anyone who was in those level of positions who was happy, who did not literally live in their office and then take work home with them. And so working 12-hour days, 5 days a week, and then taking work home with them or coming in on Saturday. And I just thought, and I started this career a little bit later. So I was like in my 50s and going, this feels like it's going to kill me. And literally there were people, like I said, in these higher positions who were like going in the hospital on a Friday. They were all not really in touch with who they were, but they felt like they couldn't leave because they had only this much time left, only this much. And it just I became very sad. And even though I was good at it and I was going for positions, something must have shifted in my energy because I would go do great the first round, second round, I was presenting in front of all these people and, handled the interviews very well. And there was something that would happen and I wouldn't get it. And it happened for like about 18 months. And I started to reconnect with my breath work, and I started to reconnect with myself. And I deep down was having like even dreams. And this has happened before in my life where I was dreaming of having more control over my time. I was dreaming of using the skills that I had in a way that was more empowering, because I do love coaching and leading and speaking and inspiring people. And that was a big part of that work, but it was a bureaucratic structure. It was a hierarchical structure, and it was very limiting. And there was no hope that it was going to change. And I felt like I did motivate and inspire, but then it would like the next big wave would come and it would just crush all that work. And so it felt like it wasn't the long haul for me. So I made it to 20 years and I was going to walk away. And I said, I went to my union and I found out that I could retire early. And it was the best thing, and it was one of my girlfriends, always a champion, one of those girlfriends that just always there to applaud you on to whatever ideas you have. And she was the one that said, go talk to them. And when I heard that I could get an early retirement, I was like, you mean I can take everything that I've learned and make it into something that really is empowering? And I knew that I wanted to specifically work with women because, in particular, my situation of growing up in a very sort of patriarchal family, not all families are like that, but mine was. And it was very clear that they did not think that I should do anything that I was doing. And so I knew there was a lot of my contemporaries were going to experience the same thing. And so now being here I am later in life and able to take all of those skills. And, I got trained in crucial conversations and, all of that is social and emotional intelligence, all of that. And so being able to take all of that and then add individual coaching to it. And now I'm going back to what I love, which is working in groups and doing small groups on this work is so powerful because, of course, you're learning from each other and it's not just all coming from the teacher or the leader. So that's how my story morphed me into it. So what is so passionate for me is that I know there are so many women, whether it's career, they want to start a business, they're in a corporate career and they have so many skills and they're like, I really could see myself doing this, even if it's a part-time business. You don't have to have people think of, oh, business, I've got to have all these people working for me. I'm a solo entrepreneur. I hope to be able to have a couple of people working for me, but I'm perfectly happy knowing that now I can show women this is possible. And let me tell you, it took a lot to clear the space in me to have the courage to say, I'm walking away. But you know what? Those degrees I earned, they're still working for me. I just changed how they're working for me. So
My gosh, I love that. I love that you, first of all, that you can relate very well with the woman that is in the corporate space, and also how you basically took back your life. You took back your power. And that to me is so inspiring because even now as an entrepreneur myself, you can change things around or you have more flexibility with your own schedule. And so it is absolutely empowering. And I can see that you love the work that you do, as do I. And it just makes such a big difference when the work that you're doing has meaning and you feel fulfilled. When I see one of my clients have a breakthrough, it just makes my day because I know everything that I'm doing is worth it. Do you get the same sense?
I do, absolutely. And even just being on the podcast and connecting with women like you is like we're validating each other, we're being heard, and we're getting this word out there that we can have what we want in life. We don't have to have that impossible, I mean, back in the 50s, it was, and I heard these stories from my mom and my aunts is like, no, you were expected to be at home, to be preparing the meals, and you were not going to have a job. And so, when we think that wasn't that long ago, we
Yes.
have the ability, they had zero power. And there was like a syndrome, I think that they coined in psychiatric terms that women would just like develop this sadness complex. Why? Because they had no life. They were literally stuck to the home and only expected to, and nothing wrong with having children or a family, but that was supposed to be it. And in fact, that's one of the reasons my parents weren't together, because when all four of us were at school all day, my mom wanted to get a job and my dad would not have it. I mean, that's how close it is in generation wise to us. So to be able to help women see you can take your power back, you can figure this out, and you can like you said, have more control over your time. I can take much better care of myself now and know that if I had been on that path, I would not be feeling as good as I'm feeling now. And even thinking about it, there have been jobs that have come up and I just look at them and just looking at the job description, I can feel my energy I'm like, there's no way, Denise, that you could sit at a computer all day and look at laws and, all this bureaucratic stuff that, yes, I have the ability to do, but sometimes just having the ability is not reason enough to do something if it
Absolutely.
doesn't make you feel good, right?
Absolutely. I was in the car with my mom last week, and she was, kind of like what you said, that it's not that far away. So her mom, my grandmother, was not allowed to wear pants because my grandfather told her that only men wear pants. So my mom said that she saw her mom wear pants one time in her entire life. And it was because of something that they were doing. But when I heard that, I was, a little piece of me was enraged a little bit, because it's like you couldn't even dress your own body the way you wanted to. And I was like, oh my goodness gracious. I was just so thankful and grateful that I'm living in these times now.
Right. And the interesting thing is being in these transformational times, I feel like even more driven to do this work because people are being faced with massive change. People are losing loved ones or divorce to, death to, all these things. People are moving to different places, but all over the world as women are trying to rise and people are trying to become empowered, there's this other force that's trying to turn back the clock. And
Yes.
they're threatened by they can't believe that we can all be empowered. So we're going to take away all of your power and go back those 50 years. And it's just like, so I really do believe this work is very timely and it's very needed and it feels like what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm so glad that we got the chance to connect. And I love what you're doing as well. I would definitely share, because many of my clients are going through that transition, whether they want to stay in corporate, how they want to show up in a corporate environment, or is it a choice that, it's time for them to branch out onto something different using their skills, because we don't have to get rid of everything. For a while, I put my degrees away and I realized, what, they're going back up on the wall because I worked hard for them and they have made me a leader. They have, my bachelor's is in mental health. Like all of those things can be used and are used no matter who you are, right? It all becomes one big amalgam of your special gifts that you have to
Yeah,
share. So, yeah.
absolutely. Well, yeah. So this has been a wonderful conversation, Denise. So is there one thing that you can leave the audience as an actionable takeaway?
Yes, I think that, whether it is triggering or whether it is any situation that is stressing you out, I think, being able to take a break from it is important. And obviously that's pretty obvious. But if you can use that statement above all else, I am ready to see this from another perspective, and breathe in, breathe out 3 times and just repeat that. I am ready to see this from another perspective. And if you really connect with yourself in that way, something will come. A lot of times it's sitting right there in our heart, but we're so blocked with all the stuff from outside of us. So just take a moment, take a walk out in nature and just say, I am ready to see this from another perspective, and just trust yourself, trust your breath, and trust your heart, because you have the answers.
Wonderful, Denise. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure.
I really appreciate Denise's unique view on using our emotions. There's a few thoughts that I wanted to wrap up from today's conversation. The first one is Denise says that we really would benefit from aligning our passion with our professional life. She says that we really need to identify the most present emotions during stressful times and using subconscious work that will calm our emotions. We also talked about the power of breath work and meditation. Denise says that breathwork and meditation are essential tools for managing stress and improving mental well-being. And I know that there's a lot of research out there about the benefits of meditation. For me personally, I have been trying to meditate for a long time, and the most I have ever been able to meditate are 18, 20 minutes. And now I've incorporated meditation as a primary practice for myself in the morning. And I can tell the days that I don't do my meditation, which I do meditation most days, but on the couple days that I haven't done it this year, then I can definitely tell the difference. Setting up my day with beginning with meditation is really key and important for how my day goes. She also says that it's important for us to identify and overcome our saboteurs. She says doing the work to identify the role of our inner saboteurs is key. And she says that we may have an inner critic or a judge, as she coins, and this judge or inner critic often stems from influential figures that we grew up with. She advises us to identify and manage these saboteurs through self-awareness, positive reinforcement, and creating supportive environments. The one actionable tip that Denise leaves us with is that she recommends us to take a break from stressful situations and using the statement, I am ready to see this from another perspective, and combine all of that with deep breathing. This simple practice helps us in calming the mind and allowing new positive perspectives to emerge, reinforcing that self-trust and inner wisdom. I am so happy that Denise came on and shared all of her expertise. All of Denise's contact information will be on the episode website. If you haven't done so already, I encourage you to complete the promotion readiness checklist or check out the Unlock the Leader Within membership. If you're on YouTube, you can scan the QR code right over here. And finally, if you're interested in more, you can always schedule a complimentary strategy call with yours truly. With that, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.